The Oklahoma Sooners are picking up steam on the recruiting trail, but what is next?
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Locked On Sooners and The Portal, featuring Brian Smith, Locked On's recruiting expert, covering all things transfer portal, recruiting from the high school scene to the college game. He's got you covered. Make sure you go check out The Portal. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. If you're trying to get your finances under control, you got to go check out monarchmoney.com right now. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year over at Monarch Money. He's Jay Smith. He's Brian Smith. I'm John Williams. And on today's episode of Locked On Sooners, we're going to talk a little bit about Oklahoma's schedule. What are some of the difficulties that Oklahoma might face? We'll do that in the third segment. We also got to talk about the big quarterback controversy that is surrounding Oklahoma recruiting in 2026. I want to start here, though, Brian. Oklahoma got a big commitment on Friday from Brian Harris, a four-star over at Rivals defensive tackle prospect, committing to the Oklahoma Sooners.
Yeah, this is a kid we saw at the Orlando Under Armour event, and great kid, first off, personality-wise. He's the kind of guy you want to be around. And he's a little bit more advanced than most kids coming out of Florida. Like, it's not just all athlete, all upside. He's got some craftiness to him. And for whatever reason, a light went on in the last year. He put on quite a bit of weight and still got faster. That's a great combination. He was 260 or so, something like that the year before, but he's give or take 280. And he has some really, really good moves, and he'll mix it up. He'll go inside on a guy. He'll go outside. He'll counter. And his strength now is that to that point where he's not going to overwhelm like a 320-pound offensive lineman in the SEC, but it'll make him viable in the run game. But especially third downs and obvious passing situations, I think he will be a threat. And it's hard to find interior defensive linemen that can get after the quarterback.
Yeah, seeing him this past season in high school, he's playing a lot of edge, but he's playing a combination of both at that size. How impressive is that to you at 290, which I heard was verified, 6'4", 290. He's able to play edge and interior with that type of athleticism.
It's pretty rare. Most of the time you see kids that, it doesn't matter if they're a Jacksonville kid, which Jacksonville's always loaded, or wherever, they do one thing. Like the high school coaching, the difference between that and like what Venables and his staff can do, that's what, light years away. You know, it's just, they get paid millions of dollars for a reason. And that's all they do all day is scheme up stuff. But he took to his craft and he's worked with the right people. So seeing him move around, and I think he'll do that more this season. And, as you mature, you learn how to take on film requirements. You understand looking at your opponents, what your tendencies are, how the offensive linemen's lined up, all those little things. Even at the high school level, they're going to let you go in and out unless you show that. And he's a mature kid. Like, being around him, I'm not really surprised. And it's why he moved up the rankings. Like, he was not like going into that Under Armour. Everybody's like, he's a good player, whatever. But then he came out there and he balled out. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then everybody wanted to interview him. You have to earn it. Like, everybody goes to these events, and we're not going to interview the guy that got his butt kicked. So he was a guy that was a standout, and he earned that. And then the offer was Penn State, Oklahoma, and everybody really started hammering it. And like, we all talked to different college coaches and stuff. I'm sure before he left that campus that day, there were coaches already putting him on the list for, hey, we got to offer this kid, or we got to try to get him on campus. And his recruitment just kept blowing up. And not surprisingly, Oklahoma's recruited Florida hard. They've got a lot of guys on the staff, obviously a certain D-line coach in particular who's really good at recruiting, and they made it work. So if Oklahoma is going to compete at the upper echelon of the SEC, this is the kind of player they got to get, especially for their one gap and go scheme where they want to attack downhill.
One of the things you mentioned to me when we were talking about Brian Harris is just his off the field character, the mentality that he has, the integrity that he has. Speak a little bit more to that, just what you've learned about him as the person.
Most kids, there's no nice way to say this, when we interview them, you can tell what's BS and what's not. Mm-hmm. Like, it's one thing to do an interview through X or Instagram, but when they're 3 feet in front of you, there ain't no hiding. I'm 51 years old. You are not going to lie to me and make it work. It's not going to happen. He was just genuine. Didn't matter if it was talking about stuff he needed to work on still. And he's still pretty humble. Like, he knows he's good, but he was humble, yet hungry. And he was also a guy kind of gave praise to God, to his teammates, to his coaches, to his, all those things. And I'm like, okay, this is a little different. because a lot of kids, especially Florida kids, they are the most difficult to deal with by a million miles as a general rule. It's not even close. There's not a lot of humbleness in Florida when it comes to football because they put more guys in the NFL than anywhere else. But he didn't look at it that way. He's like, I know I still got to grind. I got to do this. And like I was interviewing him with John Garcia Jr. and John was kind of leading it. And he worked with rivals and he was going, this kid's really blowing up before it was over. And then we went and interviewed him. And he just was so easy to speak with. Like you can look at the Shador Sanders thing or whatever, but there is a major trend towards finding, and this is my own term here, low maintenance players off the field, the people around you and all that. Brian Harris will fit that to a T. And I think it's pretty safe to say that the Oklahoma staff that came over from Clemson and some of the other guys that joined, they're not going to put up with a lot of bull, especially after the garbage that happened last year. They had everything go wrong with injuries and stuff on top of it. They don't need any extras. So this guy fits the bill. And, man, that's the trend in general. You look at Penn State, Notre Dame, some of the teams that kind of ascended in the last couple of years. They may not recruit top 5 classes, but look at how many kids leave their programs. Very low. That's the same thing that I think that they're trying to do in Oklahoma because you're not going to get to the top of the SEC and beat – like you're not going to out-recruit Georgia and Alabama. You're not. They're going to get better players. So you better have really good retention. This is the kind of kid that you got to get. You're going to beat those schools with juniors, seniors, and fifth-year seniors. Now, I know a lot of Oklahoma fans don't want to hear they're not going to out-recruit Alabama and Georgia. I'm sorry. I'll be the bad guy. It's not going to happen. It's not. They have easy pickings within an hour of their campus. It's just gross. So to make up for that, you got to find the kids that are going to fit your program. And Venables, especially the back end of the defense, been great. But when it's proven when he gets guys like Harris in the front line, then, of course, he schemes up a lot of crap too. They have a difference-making ability. You can ask Saban now. He's the one guy that's eaten Saban's lunch before. Like that game, was it 18, whatever year that was at Clemson, that was unbelievable. And Alabama's offense was legit, and they destroyed them. But you got to have the really right mix. Harris is one of those kind of guys.
That makes sense. So when it comes to Harris, and you said it, very eloquently there, and I hope Sooner fans can receive that message that Alabama and Georgia literally can throw a rock, and there's players there. Similar to LSU when it comes to 5 stars. They throw a rock in Baton Rouge, and they hit like 3 of them on accident. So they're going to land them most of the time. And typically what happens there is usually the 4 stars that end up leaving if they don't have a year that's big. But when it comes to Brian Harris, who do you think he compares to maybe in like the last 5 years as far as like a prospect go that Sooner fans can be excited about seeing when he gets to campus?
Well, this is real easy because it's another kid that I know, and he's also played his last year of high school football in Florida. He'll be a sophomore next year at Oklahoma. Who might I be talking about?
Well, sounds like a Jaden Jackson to me.
Jaden was at IMG, for those who don't remember, and that's different. Like I used to live about an hour and 15 minutes from the campus, and I know the people there well. Like there was a camp for the Polynesian Bowl, and Jaden didn't have to go to that crap. Like he could do whatever. And I was down there for something else, but they were having it there. And the people came out all the way from the island to like do some camp, try to get some other kids to come out. And Jaden was going to it. And I'm sitting there watching him go through. And of course, he was different than everybody else. But like his technique was just insane. And I'm like, he was going 1,000,000 miles an hour and all that. Brian's a little bit like that. I don't know if he's quite like Jaden's different. And that's why I knew that he had a chance to play, or I didn't know he was going to start at Oklahoma or like be it at that level, but he was really, really good. And he's probably a 3-and-out guy too, but it's just that he adheres to the craft, and college coaches are the most stubborn people on planet Earth. Either you do it their way or you don't play. And that's why a lot of kids transfer now. There's a lot of hyperbole with that, but Jaden is a yes or no sir kid too. I'm not saying Harris is going to come in and start. Don't get it twisted. But he will follow that path and the ability to learn and to do things the way they're supposed to be done. And obviously, the guys they have there, especially D-line and what the head coach is being an elite, like if you don't, that's on you. I don't know a lot about Oklahoma's program except for like the historical stuff, but like this is not hard. Don't make it too difficult. Keep it simple, stupid, the old KISS method. And he has the talent and the mentality to do it. I bet you he plays a lot by his sophomore year. I know Oklahoma's got good D-linemen, but he's going to be at least in the rotation. So that's the kind of guy that I would compare him to. They're actually kind of similar size coming out of high school too. So I think that's a really good comparison.
Yeah, maybe 2-3 years ago, Brian Harris might be a guy that factors into the
Oh,
rotation as a
right
true
away.
freshman. But now that Brent Venables and Todd Bates have really developed and built up that defensive tackle depth, he'll have to push and fight and battle. But I think the comp to Jaden Jackson is really intriguing, just with the athleticism and the way that he moves. That's a really fascinating comparison. And Locked On Sooners fans know my affinity for one Jaden Jackson. So that's an exciting comp. We're going to talk about a couple more defensive line prospects to keep an eye on. Got to talk through Oklahoma's quarterback controversy in the 2026 class as well with Brian Smith of the Portal. We'll do that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. And today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. You're trying to get your stuff under control, trying to get your bank accounts, your finances, all of that figured out as you head into the summer. You got to go check out Monarch Money. Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track of where your money goes. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year over at monarchmoney.com. Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners and the Portal your first listens every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Brian, we've been talking defensive line. I want to talk about another defensive line prospect here, Jake Krell, the really talented prospect that I don't think people are aware enough of yet in the national circles or Oklahoma circles, but this is a dude that has the potential to be really, really good.
Another IMG guy. He's from Orlando originally, and I remember the first time I saw him, it was Orlando again for the Under Armour term, but he was a freshman and nobody really knew much about him, but he went out there and he was one of the best pass rushers there was. And the politics of it, he did end up getting like the All-Star and all that stuff because they're not going to do that because it politically won't go well, but he was really good then, but he was like 205 or something like that. He's 235-ish now, 6'2", 6'3". 235, and he's got every school in the country coming after him. And every time I talk to Jake, he's very nice. He's very open-ended, smart kid, but he just loves working technique. He went to the event, like they do this is crazy. Under Armour goes to IMG for its own Under Armour event just for IMG. That's how many kids they have. After that, they didn't do one-on-ones there. So he went to Miami to do one-on-ones. This is after he had 35, 40 offers. And he went to Miami and he had the best performance I've ever seen a defensive lineman have at any Under Armour event ever. I lost track of what his record. He did not lose a rep. In one-on-ones, he took every rep. He was taking reps from guys, ghost move, spin move, two-hand swipe, up and under, dip, like everything that you could imagine. He has a bag that he can go into that's deeper than any high school player that I've ever seen. Now, he's not as physically gifted. It's like Stone or somebody like that played at IMG. And he's pretty technical, but he's not on the. If Stone had what he did, he would be the best defensive player in college football this year because like Stone's so physically gifted. But Jake eats people alive with his brain. Like he gets in their head because you go 2 reps against a guy, he would beat them so bad on the first rep, they'd be crapping their pants. And on the second one, he would do something totally counter to that, and they would just get off balance. He'd make 310-pound guys look weak. It was so weird to watch, and he just loved it. He just loved it. So that kid is going to go play somewhere. I don't know if it's Texas, Oklahoma, Tennessee, wherever. His list is through the roof. But I know Oklahoma is always one of the schools he mentioned a lot to me, and I've talked to him 20 times. Great kid, and Oklahoma's scheme would fit him really well because they do so many things multiple with Venables. He could be your stand-up guy in a 3-3 look. He could be just a traditional 4-down defensive end in a wide 7 or wide 9. And he's athletic enough to at least cover some. He's not just, an ogre that see ball, kill ball. Mm-hmm. He's a guy that's got the brain to figure it out and drop and fire zone, which Venables obviously likes to do. Yeah. So from a schematic standpoint, Jake would be a great fit for the Sooners.
And we know that for me, I like comparisons mainly because it gives people an idea of where potential could go when it comes to these players. Who's someone that you see out of Jake that Jake could end up being down the line if he continues to develop at the pace that he's developing right now?
There's so many. Think of the crazy white guys with long hair in the NFL that always play outside linebacker. That's who he is.
Oh,
He's
okay.
just has
Outside
a shorter
linebacker.
hair. He's like in a 3-4, that kind of guy, that outside stand-up linebacker. Who was the guy? He played at USC, then played for the Packers for a long time.
Clay Matthews.
Yep, that's who he reminds me of.
Oh, wow. Okay. So he has the speed to be able to run it out there at the linebacker spot.
Like if you're going to primarily rush, like Matthews rushed 93% of the time.
Fair,
Like,
yeah.
You know, every team has a different name for it, but that rush spot, and then occasionally fire zone with it because he's smart and he said, like, I don't want him man-to-man on your speedy running back. Don't get me wrong.
Fair.
But he can cover the zone and handle it. You know, like if you're going fire zone, you better get pressure. It's going to go bad. So that's something that he could do. But yeah, that kind of nutty, I'm just going downhill 100-mile-an-hour guy, 100%.
Sounds just like a Brent Venables guy to me. I mean, Brent Venables is 100 miles an hour and kind of nutty.
Fair point.
That is also maybe that's why they get along.
Yeah.
Sometimes
it's just about fit, and personality fit goes a long way too. What about a guy like Tate Carrington? Because that's a dude that's, you know, getting a lot of buzz. There's a lot of hype around him as well. What do you see with a kid like that?
Well, I mean, if you look at all the different things that, like, you just brought up a really good point. Fit. How many different teams would he how many schemes would he fit into? And like football today, man, it's, how do I put this? Some teams don't move guys around. Like Oklahoma's scheme's probably a lot harder, I would imagine. But that's also another reason it's impressive what Jaden Jackson did last year. But like, how would they use him? Would they play him in? Would they bulk him up? Would he move inside? Things like that. I don't know for sure because I'm never really sure what Venables is trying to do, which is kind of fun in a way. But like kids like him have the potential based on their frame to end up playing down, playing inside, playing outside. Maybe it's a situation where they would look at it, just let it develop naturally. But my guess is Venables has done this long enough, and that staff too, that they would probably have a projection like a player to compare him to. And they don't miss very often on those. Think about how many kids they had at like Clemson that were 3-star guys. They had some P4 offers and stuff, but like as a redshirt sophomore, okay, that kid was 230, 240, 245 when he came in. Now he's 288, but he's kept the same speed and all that. Like they figure out the best way to do it. So my guess is he's a long-term projection guy. I don't know. Like, I don't know him on a personal, like these other guys I've been around. I don't know that kid on a personal level, but when it comes to defensive players and stuff, I'm not going to really mess with what Venables is trying to do.
Yeah, that's kind of what we come back to a lot of times is like if Venables is offering a dude or Todd Bates or Miguel Chavis or Brandon Hall are offering guys, and you can pretty well trust that they're going to be pretty good players.
Yeah, and it may not be for everybody. Like every scheme is different. Like, that's the thing. That kid, I don't think he's going to play in Georgia's scheme. Like Georgia wouldn't offer that kid. You know, like the measurable thing doesn't work for them. They're really picky. Like they'll not offer a kid over a half inch, and I'm not kidding. Like it is that specific. It's not as big a deal in Oklahoma's scheme because they want penetration. They're not trying to 2-gap. They're not trying to play 2-level. They're trying to play annihilate. It's much more high risk, but you got to have speed over size in OU's type of defense, and that's what they're going for.
Yeah, unless you can find a guy that has speed and size, which, you know, we saw Venables do with like a player like an Isaiah Simmons is one that just comes out of nowhere. I love mentioning him. It's because it's nuts that you throw him anywhere on the field and quarterbacks are looking for him. Where is he? Oh, God,
yeah, he played all 3 levels. He's the only guy I can remember at the major level in the last decade that literally in a game played all 3. I've never seen that before. I'm sure Venables would love to find one of those to bring to Norman, but I don't know if we're going to see anybody like that anytime soon.
Hopefully Kendall Daniels gives us that. He is 6'5", 260 pounds, and he runs like a gazelle. So we'll see. Maybe one day.
He is quite the athlete.
All right, we're going to talk quarterbacks coming up next. Also, we're going to ask Brian, what's the scheduling aspect of Oklahoma's schedule that might intrigue him the most? We'll do that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. All right. Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners and the Portal part of the Locked On Network your first listens every single day. Make sure you're tuned in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit the subscribe button, notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. So, Brian, we got to talk about quarterbacks because quarterback has been the biggest question mark what Oklahoma's going to do in the 2026 cycle. They've had Jaden O'Neal committed since last summer. He originally committed to Seth Luttrell, but stayed committed through the offensive coordinator turnover. Ben Arbuckle coming to town. Ben Arbuckle offers Bo Bentley. What's going to happen here at quarterback for Oklahoma, Brian?
I don't have warm and fuzzies here. I don't have warm and fuzzies, and I'm not a very soft-spoken guy, so I'm just going to lay this out. I don't think they played this very well. Bo Bentley's a dude. Like on my quarterback rankings, I've got him 5th, but if he goes to LSU, would anybody really be shocked? Like, it's probably not real hard to sell quarterback at LSU. I'm going to go out on a limb there. If they don't get him, and I still need to see Jaden not take visits for me to believe he's going to end up in Norman. What do you think OU fans are going to think if we go into the latter part of July and they don't have a quarterback commitment? How's that going to go on your guys' show? And how's that going to go in the YouTube comments?
Well, as our listeners and our audience would tell you, we have one committed, Jaden O'Neal. But as Brent Venables has said in the past, if you're taking visits, are you committed? But he's not decommitted yet. But I think if they finish the 2026 cycle without a quarterback or without one of those two quarterbacks, I think there'd be some questions as to the strategy. Now, we know Ben Arbuckle loves him some Bo Bentley. I think they've been just trying to massage all of this as best as they possibly could.
Yeah.
Look, they offered the kid when they had the other one committed. So I get the whole thing. So this worked in reverse.
Yeah,
it did.
So I don't want to hear anything on the OU side. I know you're an OU fan, but
they took a risk. I mean, they took a big risk in all this, and it might not work out for them, and it might be terrible. But I do come back to this idea that if you're the offensive coordinator and you're brand new to the program, you kind of have the right to pursue the guy you want to pursue. And they've also tried to keep a relationship with Jaden at the same time. Like they want it both ways. But like Marlo Stanfield said on The Wire, like you want it one way, but it's the other way. It's the quarterbacks that have all the power in this.
Yeah,
and especially because even like you mentioned, John, Ben comes in and it's like, well, I understand he committed under Seth Luttrell, but I kind of want to add this too. While at the same time, for them, their messaging is that the quarterback position is so volatile because of the transfer portal and NIL. They're like, we would like to get to for insurance purposes long term. Now, is it going to work out that way? I think one of them, if Oklahoma finds a way to get both of them in there, they both will not graduate from Oklahoma. One of them will be gone within a couple of years.
That's kind of the nature of it. But like, I don't remember which school was first, but if you look at the way, and I know he's a goofy guy, but like you can say whatever you want about Kiffin, but like not many guys can coach quarterbacks like he does. And he takes quarterbacks constantly. One of the reasons they ain't staying. So I wouldn't hate on Oklahoma for trying to get 2. That being said, if you come up with 0, I'm looking forward to coming back on this podcast because I know that you guys will have to do it. That show will do very well for you, by the way, for all the wrong reasons. But it's wild. But then again, if they get Bo, like I don't want anybody to start in the SEC as a freshman, but like as a sophomore, he'd probably be your guy. 2-3 years, you'd have the same guy. And he's just electric. So he's probably about as talented a guy as there is. And it's so wild. He put up those crazy numbers last year at Salina. He'd never started before. Last year's first year he played. And I'm like, whoa. So now he's going to have a year to go back through that film and learn. I'm really curious to see, like, I'm going to watch some of his games. I don't care how I have to get him online or whatever. I want to see what he does.
Got to make that trip to Texas, man.
Well, I mean, I'm going to go to Texas. I might go to the state finals this next year. If he's there, I'll see him. But like, he's one of the few guys that's like literally the investment to go see a high school. Like it's just outside of Dallas too. It's a pretty dope place to go.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't much better than a Friday night football game in the greater Dallas area. Like I get to go all over the country. That's top of the board right there. So yeah, but Bo Bentley's on the must watch list. So I'd be curious to see, based on what I expect Oklahoma's offense to be this year, how quickly he could assimilate, because he's not that much different than a certain quarterback that came over from Washington State.
Yeah, and that's the thing we recognized in why Ben Arbuckle was after him is he does remind all of us a lot of John Mateer, and John Mateer's ascend playing behind a Cam Ward who, truth be told, Jaden O'Neal kind of reminds me more of a Cam Ward. Run moves when he needs to, but does that not make that the primary focus of his game? Whereas Mateer is more of a we're going to have design runs and I'm going to run up the middle and try to run somebody over, which please don't do that in the SEC. Please don't do that in the SEC.
That dude's got one speed, bro. And somebody's going to be broken. Maybe me, but somebody's going to be broken. He's going to miss at least one game this year. You can mark that down because his mentality is probably not the best for the SEC.
That's a fair point. From there, any prospects that you believe Oklahoma that you've seen at camps that have mentioned Oklahoma in a way that you're like, Oklahoma might be in there a lot better than they think?
I don't know what the heck the deal is, but like their connection to the state of Florida is really unique. I'm curious to see if they can get it to the point where they get Jaden Pettit on campus. He's from First Baptist Academy in South Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Big-bodied receiver, and obviously that's a major need. Their wide receiver room is so goofy right now with all the transfers. That would be great. It's hard to find boundaries, and he's a guy that's going to be 6'4", 225. That would be great. I wouldn't be shocked by that. He's a kid I think that will fit in, faith-based kid. Going to Oklahoma would not be shocking. The other one that I think is a little bit outside the box, but it's because of Venables, is Sincere Johnson. It's a kid that I had a chance to meet. He's from Cleveland. He's a dude, great kid, man. He's a great kid. Mm-hmm. But like, it's going to be hard. Like, I know that I grew up in Indiana. Like, people in Ohio, there's a thing that's this cult. It's called Ohio State football fandom. And he was an Ohio State fan. That's really hard. But I mean, Venables and the scheme would fit him well. So anything's possible. But overall, like, I just think any defensive player, don't be shocked. Elijah Golden, another Florida kid, but he's from Virginia originally. Mm-hmm. Possible defensive lineman, maybe. But don't be surprised by anybody they get because they have so many guys coming in that are really good all around the country. That's the other thing. This is something I look at from grading coaches. Are you just taking the low-hanging fruit in recruiting? Meaning a lot of guys hate the recruiting game, and I get it. Like right now being a college coach sucks because of all the NIL and all that. So they hate it. Like they're not going to say it publicly for obvious reasons. They hate it. But they've recruited from California to Miami, and they've been very consistent in getting kids to say yes to coming to visits. Like James Carrington's from Los Angeles. They got kids from South Florida coming too. So the staff's doing a good job. They're bought in. And usually when staffs are in that mode, you're going to get a couple of kids that I wouldn't even think about. They're going to flip somebody or whatever that somebody else already has, or they're going to get somebody that are like, he's probably going to come in fourth for that guy. They're going to do better than that because it's not that easy to get that many kids from across the country to take visits.
Yeah, and it's like Pettit's going to be here on June 6th. So I'm hoping that does happen. If we get Jaden Pettit in town, then I think Oklahoma may have a chance.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
What do you think needs to change for Oklahoma on the recruiting front to kind of push them up another tier from what they've done so far under Brent Venables?
It's the chicken and the egg. In today's recruiting world, kids don't give a crap what you tell them. They want to see it on the field. Well, the problem is the visits are first. So in my opinion, Oklahoma will be one of conservatively the 5 most interesting teams in the country, probably the top of the board, honestly, to follow this season because the schedule's retarded. I mean, obviously, I'm sure you've discussed that a bunch. We'll talk about that here in just a sec. And secondarily, more importantly, they're in on a ton of kids, even if they don't get them to commit now. If Oklahoma comes out and exceeds expectations, like what's their win-loss over under? 6.5, 7.5?
6.5,
mm-hmm.
yeah.
But their schedule's dumb. If they win 8 games and they're competitive across the board, like they lose to Texas by 3, they're competitive with everybody, blah, 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 then they're going to flip some kids. Oklahoma will be the fly in the ointment. Plus, they're always in on kids from the Dallas area. You know, Felix Ojos, kids like that. They're going to be in on kids that may or may not commit to OU now in June and early July. Just be patient. If they do well enough this fall, and if the Oklahoma fans don't complain too much on the message boards, yes, that matters. Believe it or not, that matters. It will help them in recruiting. And they've got a chance to have a really good class because it's not that hard to sell Oklahoma. So you're 3 hours from Dallas. It's at the SEC. It's a tradition-rich program, and they got really good NIL. it'll take care of itself. But to me, the key is they just got to win games.
Mhm.
That might lead to a little bit of frustration this summer because, I mean, they're competing with Texas and LSU and Georgia, et cetera. But that's okay. If they're not competing with those schools, they're never going to beat them anyway. So you've got to go through that recruiting gauntlet to get to the field and win.
So what Brian is saying here is if you don't have anything nice to say on the message boards, don't say it at all.
Don't say it. I'm
Because
being
the
serious.
kids are
That stuff
reading it.
matters.
The kids are reading it. The parents are reading it.
The parents especially, that matters. I know fans don't want to hear that. I'm telling you, that is fact.
Just
Well,
open your notes app. Just type it all out on your notes app, and then just
delete it.
Just let it sit there in the cloud. You got all your frustrations out. You can type them all in the comments here. The parents aren't going to be reading them here. But anyway, so as we look at this schedule that, is number one in strength of schedule difficulty, according to SP Plus rankings, Brian, aside from the Texas game, because that's the biggest game of the year every year. It doesn't matter what year it is. It's going to be the biggest game. What in your mind is the biggest game on Oklahoma's schedule?
I would say it's probably the Ole Miss game. That's the kind of game towards the middle, because I look at everybody's going to think I'm going to say Michigan, and that would be my second pick. But it's the Ole Miss game for this reason. By that point in the season, you kind of know who you are, and they've recruited enough. They should have accumulated some depth. I mean, last year's injury, barring something, if something like that happens again, it doesn't matter. My dead grandmother could be the head coach. You're not going to win.
Right?
You're not. You're not. So, like, I saw them play Auburn last year live, and they looked pretty good up front and stuff, but they just didn't have the depth at receiver, and that was goofy. Quarterback situation was goofy. They still won that game, by the way. Auburn, terrible at winning close games. They're awful. But do they have the depth? Because Ole Miss is going to score. I don't care what Brent has. Ole Miss is going to score. They are going to light it up. They have what I would say is the most like, I'll just leave it for this. Let people do their own research. The guy that I think is going to lead the SEC in receiving is their slot receiver. That's all I'm going to say. And Kiffin's calling plays. And they got a quarterback that's going to be as good or better than Jackson Dart. Just remember I said that. If they can win a few of those kind of games, you got to serve at home and get the point. If they can win a couple of those games, gain some momentum, obviously it builds confidence in yourself, your fan base, the boosters, administration, but maybe gives you a little credibility and maybe you can go to a decent bowl game. But that schedule, they're not going to the playoff, in my opinion. I know Oklahoma fans don't want to hear that either, but that schedule is just dumb, man. It's dumb. But with that quarterback, this defense, they should be in every game. Ole Miss that might be as good an SEC game just aesthetically. Kiffin against that defensive staff, that is just an absolute Picasso. I can't wait to watch that game. I think that's going to be awesome.
I love it. I have no complaints because I think it's very fair to say. And as a parent, I definitely understand that parents do read message boards because everybody wants to protect their kid. That's just being a parent.
That's just the way it is, man. It's always been that way.
All right. Last question on the scheduling thing. Which one do you think is going to be the sneakiest, most difficult game? Like one, everybody's going to look at Michigan, Texas, going to Tuscaloosa, but which one do you think is like flying under the radar that could be much more difficult than what we're giving credit for right now?
Do they play Mississippi State or Vandy? Because those would be.
No, we did not get those gifts.
Wow. Well, I mean, that's the point. It's like, it's weird because Vanderbilt got the quarterback back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Diego Pavia, you're not going to get your team up for Vanderbilt. You're not going to do it. So that makes them a threat against anybody. Man, I don't know. Cause their schedule is all mid-tier and up pretty much. They didn't get any bottom to it. Did they play Florida?
Nope.
No Florida, no
Auburn.
Kentucky.
We got Auburn, Texas, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Alabama, Missouri, and then LSU. In that order.
Probably Tennessee because nobody knows what to expect out of that offense now.
True.
That game is just real. I kind of feel bad for Joey Aguilar. Like Tennessee fan base is like Oklahoma. They are linear. Either we win or we're angry. There is no in between. And he didn't even get to go through spring ball. Is he going to be good? I have no idea. But they got a lot of talent there. So they got a good staff. So that's another one of those games that that 6.5 win total, I think they're going to surpass that. But if you want to get to 8 or 9, you're going to have to beat a Tennessee. Like Missouri's going to be good. That's another one you could pick. They're going to be good. Is that an automatic dub for Oklahoma? No. I know they've accrued enough talent where if you screw around, like you having some of those dumb turnovers that Oklahoma had last year, like really untimely time.
Jackson Arnold.
Yeah, yes.
So wait,
He was
let's
just
see
terrible in the clutch. He was, but that's why he got benched. If you have that against those teams that are 7 to 9 win teams, talent wise, you're going home with an L.
Yeah.
I think Tennessee and Missouri would be two pretty easy picks for that.
Yep. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners and Locked On, not Locked On the Portal, the Portal, part of the Locked On Network. Go check out Brian's work over there every single day, covering everything from recruiting, transfer portal to the top stories in college football. Go do that. It's available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel over there as well. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com, and you can follow the show at Locked On Sooners. But until next time, he's Brian Smith, he's Jay Smith, and I'm John Williams. Boomer, Jay.
Sooner.
We won't make Brian do that.
No, not this time. But next time.
Next time.
If we do well, he's got to give it to us.